Welcome back to another episode of Open Globe Talk. This is your host, Rizal Nafani, and we are joined today by an incredible woman in surgery, someone who exudes the very spirit of what it means to conduct impactful global ophthalmology. This is Dr. Oluwatosin Smith. She is a glaucoma specialist at the Glaucoma Associates of Texas in Dallas. Dr. Smith obtained her MBBS from the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, graduating with the Andrew Blair Atkins Prize in Surgery. She completed her ophthalmology residency at Howard, where she was recognized with the Most Outstanding Research Resident Award in the batch class of 2002. She then went on to complete a subspecialty in glaucoma at Wills Eye Hospital, and currently she serves at UT Southwestern as an assistant professor of ophthalmology as well. And without further ado, I just want to welcome Dr. Smith to the platform.
Well, thank you so much, Rizal, for having me. This is an honor to be here to talk about some of the things that I do every day. So this is a pleasure to be here.
Dr. Smith, I know that you did a general surgery residency in UK and then did an ophthalmology residency afterwards. So what led you into this specialty, and what motivated you to end up in glaucoma afterwards?
So I'm somebody who generally has a surgical inclination. I enjoy surgery, and I actually went to medical school in Nigeria. And during my surgical rotations, I tended to kind of enjoy those rotations quite a bit. Um, you know, living and growing up in Nigeria, you realize that there are a lot of people who are blind. And as a child, I remember being in the back seat of the car and kind of looking outside the window at a traffic stop. And typically what you would see is, and then beggars will then come over to the window, usually somebody who is visually impaired. It tends to most of the time be a man, and with a younger child who would then lead them to the window, and they will be there for a time. The child will be able to see and would be looking at you directly, and the older person will be behind that person, sort of usually saying a prayer, and encouraging you to give them some kind of alms. And you know, my memory was one of interacting with that child, because that usually would be somebody about my age. But then remembering that this child had to do this every single day. And as I got into medical school, I realized that some of the reasons why people couldn't see were reversible or treatable. And ophthalmology is very visual. It really is. You see a pathology and you can make a diagnosis based off of what you see. And so I fell in love with ophthalmology, and the thoughts of just being able to help people. You have patients who would come in for cataract surgery, and you could actually transform somebody's life, freeing up that child, for instance, to do other things in life while the other person had an opportunity to see because of something that you did. So, ophthalmology was something that I grew up with in terms of the pathology. And it was very fulfilling to see what you could do for people who had eye disease, and in helping them see better.
I think that's such an incredible story you mentioned, because I was looking at the healthcare system of Zambia. And Zambia has a similar issue where obviously, HIV/AIDS is one thing, but blindness actually leaves a lot of children really taking care of their parents. And you have this side of society where, this child has basically lost years because they're taking care of the family and they have to. And in most cases, they become orphaned because the lifespan of those parents who are blind is not as long as somebody who is able to take care of themselves. And so I'm gathering this is what propelled you to pursue childhood glaucoma. Is that right?
It really is. I'm very fond of children. Initially, it would be early on. I used to think I would become a pediatrician. My mom is a family medicine doctor, and so you would go into her hospital and you see lots of children there, and I just love kids. But in going into ophthalmology, I realized that examining a kid in the lane with glaucoma was easy for me because I really know how to interact with children. I have enjoyed taking care of child people with childhood glaucoma. I know there are complexities that come with that. There are people you have to follow their entire lives. But it's really rewarding to realize that for childhood glaucoma, if you do a trabeculotomy or goniotomy and it works, basically you took care of that child and you fixed the problem for the rest of their life. In fact, I did an EUA on a 29-year-old yesterday, who had a goniotomy done by Dr. John Lynn, who was the founder of our practice at Glaucoma Associates of Texas. And he had his goniotomy done 28 years ago. That's perfectly functional. And he's doing well. He's doing well. So amazing.
That's pretty just different from the adult experience, do you think?
Well, yes, because the pathology is different for both. And sometimes you're able to do that one surgery and it works for the entire lifetime of the child. And some of them have sort of more complex glaucomas where they need multiple surgery and they have multiple other eye conditions in place. And it's I always call it a relationship, and it's a joy to take care of children. I had three children on my schedule yesterday, and it's really important to me when the kid first comes in. I know we have to make a diagnosis, but I always tell the parents, I said, I'm going to be seeing this child for a long time. So for me, the first couple of visits is all about building a relationship. So it's a joy, it's a privilege to be able to take care of children and try and help preserve vision that will extend through the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Um, just a question, you moved from Nigeria, then went to Howard. What got you interested and moved to Texas?
So my journey to Texas was a little different. I was at Howard. I did residency there at the Howard University Hospital, and then I went on to Philadelphia. So I kind of lived on the East Coast for a while there. And after my fellowship, I actually moved and worked at the University of Mississippi. It was interesting because it was a very bold move. But when I think back, I think that was one of the best things I ever did in my life for two reasons. The first reason being that it was leaving fellowship and moving to the University of Mississippi that did not have a glaucoma department or a glaucoma faculty member to start that department. So that means you were kind of everything. And if you know Mississippi, there's a
Mhm.
lot of glaucoma there that's real glaucoma, not mixed glaucoma that requires trabeculectomies and tube shunts. So I think it was a move that showed it reflected sort of a confidence in my training. I felt I was trained and I could handle whatever was sent my way, and it was a good growing experience. There was a lot of pathology, and the other thing was that opportunity to start the department of the glaucoma section at the University of Mississippi. When I got there at that point in time, in 40 years, they had never had a full-time glaucoma person. So that was it was a privilege, and I was there for 6.5 years. And now when I look back at the University of Mississippi, some of my residents are the glaucoma faculty members there. Mississippi now has a department. It has someone to take care of people with glaucoma in that state in Jackson. So I have University of Mississippi, and Mississippi holds a special place in my heart when I just think about that. But then moving on to Texas, my husband decided that he wanted to move somewhere else, and so that's how I ended up in Texas. So my journey was not directly to Texas. I was via Mississippi, and that still really, really holds a special place. I always, when I go into the building, when I stop by to visit, I just have this big smile on my face.
I remember reading an article where you mentioned you got really excited about teaching from there. And what is it about, starting up a department, and I would assume that would be the case for you, and just kind of building it from the base up. And what was that thrill like? Because I think it's so amazing to go into medical education and kind of change the face of an entire institute. It has a big impact.
So that was, everybody likes to buy toys that are new and shiny. So that was the first part. I got there and there was not a glaucoma division, so that meant I essentially had a blank check. And so we sat through buying equipment, setting up clinics, and then setting up the rotation for the residents. And the residents at the University of Mississippi see a lot of pathology. It's the only medical school in the state, so to speak, and it was great. It was great to um, see my residents come through and learn. Some of them, by the end of their rotations, had done 25, 30 tube shunts. In fact, I was so comfortable with them operating, I would just sit there and watch them operate. And you would, thereafter, some of them were really good. You wanted them to go into fellowship. I had somebody who decided to go to private practice and came back and did a glaucoma fellowship after that. It's rewarding to go to the academy and or the AGS and see your past residents or fellows, and you see them thriving and doing so well wherever they are, taking care of people. It's a different feeling. It really is a different feeling. But most of all, I think when I think about my Mississippi experience and that experience, I realized that the importance of taking good care of people, and people having access to good health care. Um, you know, I must say, before I got to the university, there was somebody in private practice um, who filled the gap for both in his private practice and for the university, and that's hard work to be able to do that. And I'm sure the people of Mississippi are sort of appreciative to him. But you need more than one glaucoma specialist, and to see multiple people in that space now, whether it's residents that went back to train, glaucoma specialists in the city, that is it's a real blessing to see.
I agree. Going into your research front, because you go into glaucoma, global ophthalmology from the angle of research. What are some interests that you have in research? You've done work with MIGS assessing, different patient ages, and then GAT for IOP control. You have Cure Glaucoma Foundation as one of your charities, which we'll talk a little bit later. But what is your angle of research?
So, I believe that for every disease, we're at different places when it comes to either achieving a cure or a cure or treating. For majority of glaucoma patients, we don't have a cure right now, but we have to treat the patient, and that is our best cure for now. So being able to develop or figure out which patients are best for what procedures is really essential, especially in the past 10 years with the introduction of mixed procedures onto the market, and all of us having access to that. The one thing I would say is, when I then go on to global ophthalmology, I know it's hard enough for people in Africa, for instance, to be able to get mitomycin to do a good trabeculectomy, which we all have a hard time keeping a trabeculectomy viable and functional for many years. It is the best option that we've had for so long. But then there's other things that have been here for a long time, like glaucoma drainage devices, that because of the cost of the implant, it's a little cost prohibitive, but it is another good option for treating patients. The MIGS procedures have been here for probably close to 10 years. And some of them require an implant of some sort, and some of them do not. And I think about the spectrum of treatment, so to speak. Those people who are on their glaucoma journey, who require some kind of intervention, so that they don't go blind, because ultimately that's our goal. And to be able to afford to do drops, if you're in a country where the per capita income is so low, it gets really hard to afford the drops. And sometimes surgery may be a good option for these patients, but then you want to find a good surgery that works or helps as a stopgap to make sure intraocular pressure stays controlled. So my angle is when it comes to research and global ophthalmology is to find viable, sustainable ways of introducing what we have in the Western world to the third world, so to speak. Um, uh, and also being able to apply, we don't want to wait until something becomes $1 a piece to be able to help our colleagues that are in some of these countries get some of the technology or the knowledge of the science, the surgical skills that we have. So it's all about looking at the MIGs and finding the ones that you can adapt to the third world countries that they can do. And there are lots of options, and then being able to take those options to them, train them on them, and then looking at the results that they achieve with taking these options and then using them as options in taking care of patients. So there's several angles here. We don't have a cure no matter where you live, but we have access, and being able to take that access elsewhere in a way that is economically efficient is the word I like to use, that so that you can, it's the same, you're doing the same thing but in different areas of the world to achieve a cure, so to speak, the current cure that we have, which is keeping people seen for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned economic efficiency. You've been working with industry for over 15 years. And one of the things that I've noticed with industry is they're very reluctant to go into these low middle income countries and try to invest in those regions because it is hard. There is the infrastructure problem, and then there's the economic aspect of things. And so I've seen industry kind of go more towards the developed countries, and you've been able to bring industry research into these developing countries. And so how do you convince industry to focus on a population that has been underserved or marginalized, and try to show that, this, when we talk about inventing treatments, it needs to take into account a whole lot of population and not just those people living in developed countries. Especially now with globalization of people, we have individuals immigrating from all over the world and residing in developed countries.
This is a topic I actually had to write a paragraph on a few days ago. And industry is great. I've worked with industry for many years, and their goal is ultimately to provide options, new technology to physicians to better improve their patients. But ultimately, it's all about making a profit. And so I agree with you. They tend to stay within economies where that is more likely to happen, which means that the tendency to go to third world countries or other countries where the cost of healthcare is moderated in a certain way is less likely to happen. But I always say it's always good when you have an opportunity to sit before a company of sorts and to make a case. And I would say that in certain instances, I've been able to make a case for some of the countries that we have had to go into. Some of the countries are they're very involved in missions and being able to impact the world in different ways. And all of them they do it to different degrees. I would say that the one company that I've worked with quite a bit in that regard is New World Medical. They have a big mission section. They will give everything away if they could. And they have helped actually with some of the pilots that we've done in trying to figure out, like for glaucoma drainage devices, how we can train physicians who this technology is not new. It's 50 years old. It's been there forever. But somehow, because of a lack of access, it's not trained. People are not trained as it's not trained as an option for taking care of patients. So I would say making a case is one thing, and then some of these other countries are really, they're emerging worlds, and if companies have a vision, they would actually have sections, and they can afford it. It wouldn't cost them half of anything that they spend in R&D in the US, for example, or in Europe, to actually cater to some of the needs in this area as a section of their company, so to speak. And so making a case and helping them realize that there is potentially a market because there are people who do need care. And sometimes it's all about people want to do something, but they don't really know how, or how to make that leap. I think the unique place that I am in is somebody who is from the African country continent, for instance, who has been in the Western world, who is engaged with them. And for instance, the concerns, if I take the glaucoma drainage device implant and the thought of introducing it there, even though it's readily available on the market, the concern was who is going to train them? Because we also have concerns about providing and providing access to a device without being sure that the physicians who want to use them have training and also have they have the support that they need as they get better expertise at what they're doing. So being able to bridge that gap is also really important. I think that has helped the success of what we do. Being able to say, I will, and saying, okay, you give me what you have, I'll take it and I'll teach them and I'll stay with them until they've learned. But not only that, in the programs that we have at the Cure Glaucoma Foundation, the program requires them to train other people every couple of years. Make sure you have mentor one person, which means that we can step away and move on to other countries while that country just continues to expand in the knowledge and in the access, because we have gone in there and breached that gap.
Yeah, and I love the segue into Cure Glaucoma Foundation. And before we get into this a little bit further, I just wanted our listeners to know a little bit about how did this organization start and what this organization is aimed at.
So it was probably about 7 years ago or something. My partners, I had done mission trips for many years, but I would leave the mission trip just thinking that that wasn't enough, which brought me to the part about trying to figure out how we could create a trainer program. But of course, first of all, there was that passion, and there was also passion for research. We're a very research-oriented practice. But also we have people, there's many of the children that come to our practice for care for congenital glaucoma actually get that care for free. It's if you're a child, you come to our practice, we will do it for free, and we will care for you for free. So all of that, with that, we decided to put together the Cure Glaucoma Foundation. And we have different sections to it, whether it's access to care, transformational research, or global outreach. And our global outreach arm is a big training arm. We're very interested in reaching out to the world to train in whether it's MIGS or just surgical procedures, creating access, making connections, mentoring through WhatsApp. We're there, we answer questions all the time. But our global outreach then allows these physicians return to us, whether before or after this outreach, so to speak, to watch us do surgery, to ask questions, to have us come sit with them wherever they are in the world while they try their hands out at what they've seen us do. So we also have international fellows who come watch us. It is just making sure that we care for people beyond where we are. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. There are many programs that I support, like Eye Care America, which is a program by the American Academy of Ophthalmology, which is all about you staying in your office and people coming that live here in America that you take care of, give them a free eye exam. Or the AGS Cares program, which is a program that allows you to do free surgery for Americans. But making sure that everybody, no matter where they are, have access and to the kind of eye care that I would like my family members to have.
Yeah. And the AGS, and this is different, the AGS that you mentioned, but the American Glaucoma Society meeting we just had this spring, you were featured on it, and it was something that, really motivated all of us to be able to give back to our community. There's not just one single underserved community. There are multiple communities out there in this country and internationally. Um, the Cure Glaucoma Foundation started in 2014, and I'm wondering, how did COVID affect that? It seemed that you continued to power through it, and that was what caught me by surprise, and must have caught everybody by surprise because it actually was doing very well during that period.
Well, that's thank you for that, for talking about that, because we had incidentally before COVID done a pilot on how we could train surgeons halfway across the world and then show up at their doorstep for 2 days while they acquired surgical skill. So we, even before COVID and everybody knew what Zoom was, we had actually started that particular program. We had sent out stuff to them. We made them learn through the Academy website at that point in time. We had uh, we had a program going. So when COVID happened and wouldn't let us travel, it was the unique opportunity for us to take the second class of surgeons after training the first class. So we had told them you must have somebody trained within the next 18 months. So they had people they introduced to us. We went ahead and added another country. We found surgeons in Kenya. We added them to the second training class of the Nigerian surgeons. And we had a total of probably going on 16, 17 surgeons that we would train via Zoom. It was on Sunday mornings for an hour. We had faculty members because of Zoom that would join us from Duke, from University of Maryland, from St. Louis University, from private practice. They would join us. That lecture would be delivered, and we would have 15, 20 minutes of the students, surgeons who are halfway across the world. At that time, it was 7 or 8 p.m. For some of them, just jump in, asking questions, and then we will round up that session. So they were able to receive their virtual didactic training while COVID was going on. And then once things cleared up, the teams then flew into the two countries. All the surgeons gather at the same location with their own patients, with their OR staff, with their own instruments, and we operate all day long with them. Each person, our goal is for them to operate on anywhere from 6 to 7 patients, and then we certify them after that. So it was COVID just showed us clearly that you can do this. You don't have to go. You can participate in global outreach from anywhere, whether you're that person who shows up to give a lecture on a Sunday morning, or you're the person who on the WhatsApp group answers the question of, what do I do? This is what I'm seeing right now. So it's really wonderful.
Well, and kudos to you and the team that got together to train these people. I know we spoke with Dr. Chika Matenge. I got to talk with her at the Global Ophthalmology Summit. I was very, very happy to see her, very excited for her residency class. You've mentioned Kenya, Nigeria. What country do you think is still I know there's multiple countries within the African continent, but like, which country is next for you, and which do you think has an untapped potential that is just just waiting to be explored?
So it's interesting you talked about Dr. Matenge, because we were trying to get one of her residents to come to Kenya to watch that surgical session, but they are on our list. Rwanda is on our list to go to. Sierra Leone, we had a surgeon reach out to us who she is the only one, but hopefully we can have somebody to partner with her. But we're this year, so we won't be starting a new class this year. We're hoping to start a new class next year and gather surgeons in various countries to make up a class. We'll do the same thing. We hope to train at the same time 15 to 20 people. At least our goal is always to take a country and look at the geography and find surgeons scattered all over the country. So we're very intentional about what we want. We want to train surgeons scattered all over the country, so they go back to those regions and there is at least one person, and then they're responsible for teaching others in that region. and not just coming from that country, but coming from various regions in the country. So we are looking to several African countries, small African countries, to join the next class. Our goal is to train them virtually, find teams of surgeon groups, and to go into the different countries and do the training there. It only takes 2 days, but there's a lot of logistical planning that makes that happen. And then setting them up with the rest of the group so that they can continually learn the process. The one thing I would say is, in addition to doing the sort of the train the trainer program, we actually reach into countries and we do mixed sessions. So next year, our goal is two things. Our first goal is, we actually had a meeting this morning, is to go to Bali, where we're hoping to hold a mixed conference in Bali, and making sure that we have, geographically applicable procedures that are economically efficient. They work well, and they don't cost too much, provided to the surgeon, so they can learn something different that they can provide to people within their geographic zones. So Bali, we're planning for that. It's going to be a MIGS update, or glaucoma surgical update, with an emphasis on MIGS, with wet labs and live surgery, to create that awareness in that area. But also we're going to South Africa. We're going to Cape Town to work at the University of Cape Town on a GATT course, because that is another thing that you can do with a 5-row Prolene suture. You can do it with a catheter as well, but it is efficient and it's economically efficient, and it has, but it requires training for surgeons. So those are two things that we have planned for next year, in addition to taking on our next class of trainees.
Amazing. You have your hands full. And just to wrap up, Dr. Smith, what I noticed in the American Glaucoma Society, and just what I've spoken with colleagues who have worked with you, is that you're really a family-oriented person. As a woman in surgery, I think that's what stayed with me, that you're able to juggle these many things. And I hate the word juggle, right? But I think you've managed it really well. And I wondered what your thoughts were to anybody who's entering into ophthalmology or a surgical subspecialty and is wanting to, give back to the country of their birth, as well as be someone who their kids can idolize over the course of their career.
So my advice would be, you can do it. You can do it, and it becomes easier to do now because of one thing that you said. The whole world is becoming, there's this globalization that's going on, where the world is becoming, it's merging together as one. Also, the technology is allowing us be in multiple places at the same time. So start small. If, when your kids are small, or you have a young family, if it's volunteering to go through the charts to approve the patients that have been submitted for surgery, to showing up 15 minutes once a month to impart your knowledge or your experience to surgeons asking questions, to when it becomes possible, or giving a Zoom lecture. When it becomes possible, getting up like I do and just going for 2 days. We go for anywhere from 2 to 4 days for this training. And really, we operate for 2 days. That's what we've done so far. We may have 60 patients. We just power through for 2 days. And then we do post-ops, and when we're up, and within 4 or 5 days, we're back. So there are many opportunities in the times that we live in, and you can add that to the multiple hats that you wear. If that is something that you're excited about, that you think will bring you some fulfillment, it is possible, is what I would say.
Awesome. And just wrapping up with this show, I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Smith. For anybody who doesn't know, Dr. Smith's practice is incredibly busy. On top of that, she does this foundation work, which is, as you can already tell, has been an incredible work of passion and love for the underserved community, both here in the United States as well as abroad. And we couldn't be more thankful for her time today. So I just want to say thank you again, Dr. Smith, and hope to have you and see you in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was my pleasure, Rizul.